Hey, Onslow County, it's Matt Ham here, current candidate for the Board of Education, and I want to talk to you about something that I talked about from the very beginning of my campaign. And this was me in front of the school board in November of 2023. So, there I mentioned accountability, and accountability is very important when it comes to legitimacy of a system or a set of rules or a policy. If nobody's being held accountable to these rules or this policy, then what good is the policy? It's not good at all. It's just a piece of paper and empty words. So, first, I want to tell you about my philosophy on how I see the school board's relationship with the school system and the superintendent. And I want to tell you why the accountability has left the school board and why the authority has gone from the school board to the administration, where accountability is non existent. And this is very important because if a candidate is not talking about the accountability issues that we have right now, they're not going to be talking about any issue that they're going to be able to fix, because nothing is going to get fixed in the system until the school board takes power back from the administration. So sit back and I'll tell you. Our founders were smart enough to know that humans left to their own devices without any sort of accountability are always going to end up corrupt. And that's just human nature. So they made it so that everything in our government and everything in the public is accountable to somebody. And in the end, it's accountable to the people. So the first thing we have is the school board. The school board is elected by the people. And the school board is the people's representation for the whole school system. The school board will create the policy, the school board will hire the administrators, and the school board will set up the school system. Now, the school board doesn't create the curriculum, and the school board doesn't tell the teachers how to teach. The school board is all about governance and policy. The curriculum and the teaching and all that, that is with the administration and the superintendent. Now, the school board sets the goals and the boundaries that the superintendent must work within and work towards. And if the superintendent is not meeting those goals or working within those policies, then they're not doing their job. And so, who is holding that person accountable? Well, let's see. So, the teachers are accountable to the principals. The principals are accountable to the higher administration. But if we see the policy here, we see that the board is responsible at the very end for hiring decisions. The superintendent will make his recommendations, and the board will have the final decision. But that's where it ends right there. So if we come over here and we look at demotions or terminations, the board isn't involved at all with those. This is all the superintendent and administration. And this is despite that the general statute that this is policy is based on states that the board will be responsible for firing and demotion. Now, if the board is responsible for hiring, the board should also be responsible for termination and demotions. So the superintendent should be able to make personnel recommendations to the board, but the board needs to be the final arbiter, the final say on those personnel decisions. So that's one thing in the policy that needs to change. If the administration is the one that's supposed to be holding these principles to account, then the administration's not doing that. Who's holding the administration accountable? Well, that's supposed to be the school board. But the school board can't do anything about that because they're not involved in this process at all. So they can just say, well, not our problem. That's the superintendent. Now, we could sit here and talk about all the new policy we could enact and all this and that to fix this issue, but the problem is the policy is already in place. So, obviously, the policy is not being followed. I've talked to teachers and substitutes, full time teachers that have witnessed bullying and have admitted that they didn't report it because they feel like the administration, being that the principals and counselors of the schools, aren't going to do anything about it. And I hear that over and over. Oh, they're just not going to do anything about it. Well, there's an issue right there because according to the policy that the school board set up, it is their responsibility to do something about that. And it's their responsibility to report every instance of bullying. It's their responsibility to report every instance of violence in the schools to the state Board of Education. Have they been doing that? Because I've been seeing all of these people show up to these school board meetings talking about violence that their children are experiencing. And I would really like to know, has the school board reported those instances of violence to the State Board of Education? Well, if they're not getting handled on this level down here, you can bet they're probably not being sent up to the State Board of Education either. Now, if a parent has a complaint about something in the schools, like the principals, the teachers, or the superintendent, they should be able to go to the board about those complaints and have the board be able to handle that. But why does the board's policy look like this? We see here that any complaints that a board member receives has to be forwarded to the administration. Now, why is that? Why cannot board members individually handle problems? That should be the board members' responsibility right there, is when the administration is not doing their job, the board is supposed to be holding them accountable for that. So why would the board members forward any complaints to the administration when the administration obviously failed in the first place? So far I've made the point that accountability flows from the board, which is from the people. The people choose the board. The board is the representation of the people, and the board is the voice of the people when it comes to the school system. So who is the administration accountable to? Well, they're accountable to the people via the board. So how can an administration be held accountable if the board is not in the loop on the accountability part of any of this? See here where the administration is required to keep records of all of these instances of bullying and with all of these students. Now, I would challenge the administration to show us all of these records that they've kept and where they've recorded all of the bullying incidents that have been mentioned by these parents that are not getting taken care of. Somebody has to be held accountable to those rules and that policy. And that's just not happening here. And if nobody's talking about this, again, they're not talking about any root problem that's going to be able to get fixed, because right now, as it is, the administration has all the authority in the school system. And that's not how it should be. That's not how our government was designed. That's not how the board works with the superintendent. The superintendent works for the school board. The school board hires the superintendent to do a job. And if that superintendent is not doing the job that the school board hired them to do, the school board needs to stop paying them and find somebody else to do that job. So tell me what you think about this. And again, accountability is very important. Accountability is how we add legitimacy to any system, including our school system. So please comment below, share this out with everybody and see what they think too. I'm very interested to hear what your opinion is on this, and I look forward to hearing you and talking to you soon. Thanks. Peace be with you.